Welcome in, Nittany Nation. We are here at one of the coolest spots in Hoppy Valley, one of the best breweries in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, Antifragile Brewing Company, right here on Calder Way in downtown State College. And we are continuing our rollout of the obligatory Penn State quarter century team, celebrating the best Nittany Lions in the last 25 years of Penn State football. If you didn't check out our last show on the second team defense, please do so. This week we are doing the second team offense. A lot of great players, though. I am joined by an offensive guy himself, swapping out Kevin Horn for former Penn State offensive lineman Landon Tengwall.
Booch, thanks for having me on. I'm excited to be here for this one. I think I was in diapers for some of these players on this list.
A little bit today. That's okay.
Since I've retired, everybody knows I've been doing my research on the history of Penn State football. So I think I'm well equipped for this one. I'm excited.
Yeah, I want to take an opportunity to shout out our sponsor, Hoppy Valley Brewers Fest, coming back to Penn State on July 19th. You can buy your tickets on the URL on your screen, hoppyvalleybrewersfest.com. We want to see you there. Now, again, a quick reminder about how we did this. We put together a panel of, we won't say experts, we'll say voters, okay, who represent a cross-section of perspectives on Penn State football. Of course, we had our cast and the staff at For the Bloggy, some of our sponsors who are big-time Penn State football fans. We talked to folks in the media, volunteers with the Penn State Alumni Association, even a few super fans. What we got was a range of opinions reflecting all of Penn State football fandom on who belongs on this team. Again, we're talking second team offense. And again, it's a reflection on the number of great players we've seen in the blue and white in the last 25 years, Landon. The number of great players we're going to talk about today. And we're going to start at a position group that, despite being a little bit of a pain point the last few seasons, if you look at the last 25 years, has a lot of great players at it, and that's the wide receivers.
It absolutely has. Since really 2021 and on, it's like you said, it's been a little bit of a bugaboo there, to say the least. But from that time period back, it has been really, really good for Penn State. So I think we got a lot to choose from here, Booch.
Yeah, some tough decisions on who was going to make the cut. Without further ado, let's get to our first second team wide receiver. Chris Godwin ranks high on the list of special talents who chose Penn State during its most challenging circumstances and helped to lead the program back into the national spotlight. Godwin made an immediate impact in James Franklin's first season, earning freshman all-conference recognition in 2014. His role in the offense continued to expand over the following 2 years, culminating in a Big Ten championship in his final season in the blue and white. That year saw him depart for the NFL, listed in the top 10 across multiple Penn State career receiving categories. Critically important player in a crucial time period for Penn State football, because if you look at Godwin's career, Landon, it really bridges the transition from the sanctions era into the start of James really getting things turned around on that Big Ten championship team.
Look, I'll say one of the nicest guys I've ever met, too. I think he deserves all that love he gets in the media. And I think, there's been some guys in the past, maybe Bobby Ingram, a couple other guys, but maybe one of the best single game performances in one of the biggest moments. Obviously didn't go on to win that game, but still showed up when we needed it most. And like you said, just a part of one of the most fun and explosive offenses that Penn State has seen in a long time.
Superlative in that Rose Bowl after the 2016 season. And I would tell you, I think third in a top three of Chris Godwin performances for me. Two games come to mind for me with Chris Godwin. Number one, the Pinstripe Bowl against BC at the end of the 2014 season. As a young guy, he was critical to Penn State winning that game. And if you go back and you look at that, it meant so much to be able to win that first bowl game as we got bowl eligibility back. And that preserved a winning season for the Nittany Lions that year. They're 6-6 going into that game. So big time performance in the Pinstripe Bowl. Number one for me. Talk about one of those plays that changes the trajectory of Penn State football. The 2016 Ohio State game doesn't happen without the Minnesota game 2 weeks prior. And Chris Godwin makes a diving, I'm going to say flying reception on the final game-tying drive that allowed Penn State to get that home game against Gophers into overtime. Of course, Saquon ices it, and that really starts things for Penn State. So now let's move on to the next second team wide receiver. Two guys at this position, and this is one of my all-time favorites. Let's hit it. With an enthusiasm for the spirit of Old State that matched his abilities on the field, Dion Butler was the perfect player to help lead the Nittany Lions to 2 Big Ten championships over the course of his career. A breakout star of the legendary freshman receiving corps on the 2005 team, Butler compiled a 4-year track record of big catches and game-changing plays. Earning a second ring as a senior and finishing his time at Penn State ranked among the most productive receivers in program history. Part of a small group that's got 2 Big Ten championship rings. Not too many Penn Staters can say that, unfortunately, but Dion had a pretty interesting journey to be where he is today.
Absolutely. Coming in, obviously, as a defensive back, not only a defensive back, but a walk-on defensive back, and then at the time of the end of his career, was all-time leader in receptions. And once again, I said this for Chris, but had Dion on my show too. One of the nicest guys you'll ever meet, and really just changed the trajectory of a otherwise boring Penn State offense, Booch, to put it nicely. Yeah, big time. I appreciate you having me on the show a little while ago talking about the 2005 season. The overhaul of that wide receiver corps from 2004 to 2005 was dramatic. And really, Dion Butler was a big-time part of that. You talk about him being a walk-on. It was because the power programs just looked at his size and didn't think he was big enough to make an impact. But he believed that he could play big-time ball. He bet on himself. And, obviously worked out really well at Penn State. And then in his pro career, a lot of natural speed. But really, the thing with Dion that he paired with just really reliable set of hands was that dude was great at generating separation. Like, even against the best defensive backs, he could just get open. And I think you can't talk about Dion Butler without talking about the hype speech he gave in the huddle before the famous road win at Ohio State in 2008. I talked about him having 2 Big Ten championship rings. I don't know if he gets a second one if he doesn't hype those guys up with that "we are not normal" speech. Amazing. It's the best Penn State speech ever. I don't know if one beats it. And really just, and because every once in a while you get those videos of the fans, leaning over the edge of the stadium and getting some of those, and you hear some good ones. That is the greatest one ever. They don't have the tradition to hold our nuts. Hold our poetry. Could be said any better than that. So keeping with the pass catchers, we're now going to talk about our second team tight end. Without further ado, let's get to it. Recruited by Bill O'Brien, committed to James Franklin, Mike Gesicki bridged eras of Penn State football. Beginning his career on teams that struggled through post-sanction roster limits, Gesicki played a key role on the Big Ten and Fiesta Bowl championship teams that brought the roar back to Happy Valley. With his ability to separate, win the fight for contested catches, and knack for highlight reel plays, the rangy tight end touched off a run of success at his position that has continued unabated at Penn State for over a decade. It's like I said, man, a lot of good players on this second team offense, all Big Ten champions so far. Yeah, I mean, Mike Gesicki, obviously someone that was carrying over Jesse James, and it was kind of thought, hey, he's going to be the next guy going into his second year. Then showed up in 2015, had a little bit of the yips, had some problems. There was a little bit of worries there, but settled in very nicely and then became, I don't know if Trace McSorley, I mean, obviously was going to be great, but if he doesn't have that safety blanket, the guy that can go up, get those balls for him, and just be that another dynamic piece of that 2016-17 offense, I think Mike Gesicki he was so important to that explosive Joe Moorhead team there. Really set the tone for what is becoming this kind of mini tight end U run at Penn State. As you pointed out, I can't think of too many Nittany Lions at any pass catching spot who could high point the ball the way that dude could in contested catch situations. And yeah, to me, you hit on it. One of the great stories for any player who has a rough start to their career. I mean, Mike will tell you, just dropped some wide open passes early on in his career, but he didn't let that define who he was. And he came back and, it was a runaway choice to be the second team tight end. Now, as you see the Mike Gesicki's number 2, you can probably guess who's going to be number 1.
But the two guys who are at the top of the list here just ran away with the voting. And it's a testament to what he meant to that Big Ten championship team and then that Fiesta Bowl champion the next season. So we're going to take a little break. And when we come back, we're going to talk about the guys who are right after your heart, Tengwall.
Let's
the
do
big
it.
boys up front can't do anything without the offensive line. We're going to have the second team offensive line on the other side of the break. We're talking Penn State quarter century team here at Antifragile Brewing Company. We'll be right back. Mark your calendars for July 19th when the Hoppy Valley Brewers Fest returns to Penn State. Meet the brewers and enjoy exclusive pours from over 75 breweries from across Pennsylvania and beyond. Revisit your favorite places, reconnect with friends, and make new memories at the Hoppy Valley Brewers Fest. Learn more and get your tickets today at hoppyvalleybrewersfest.com. Second team offense, Penn State quarter century team, obligatory style, here at Antifragile Brewing Company. We're going to talk, Landon, now about a position group that has had, as you know, you've been familiarized, a little bit of an up and down history here at Penn State, the offensive line. But before we get there, we're going to talk about something that is not up and down in any way, shape, or form. That is the excellent beer, the amazing cheesesteaks, even the great kombucha for the gut health here at Antifragile Brewing Company.
Absolutely. I work just a little ways away from Antifragile. Sometimes the missus texts me. She says, hey, dinner's going to be ready in an hour. I say, I'm still an offensive lineman at heart. Sometimes you go 2 meals, sneak over, get a cheesesteak and a beer, and then you go home, and then you're not getting seconds at dinner. And then, it all works out. So I'm always over here at Antifragile.
Yeah, I know and love our audience on this program. And I know we got a lot of folks of a certain age, we'll say. Great spot for you, even on a football weekend, really. It is a gem to have here in downtown State College, and we so appreciate them supporting the show and hosting us here as we film and talk about this quarter century team, the best Nittany Lions of the last 25 years of Penn State football. We're going to get into the offensive line now, and it's an appropriate time to talk. Just refresh everyone if you didn't see last week's show on the second team defense, and if you didn't, please go check that out. Just the few criteria we gave our voters. We said, number one, just look at the collegiate career. We're not judging anyone on what they did in the NFL. This is about what they did as Nittany Lions. And then the other criteria we gave everyone, and it was otherwise wide open, was a player's eligible at the last position they played at Penn State. And that's relevant to offensive line and really some of the guys we'll talk about because players have moved around, they change position. And so we're going to get into the offensive tackles first. There's been some challenges for Penn State on the offensive line over the years, but at the top end, some really great talent. So let's look at the second team offensive tackles. Just sneaking in past the closing of the 20th century, Kareem McKenzie's Y2K year of eligibility was still enough for voters to recognize him as one of the most talented Penn State O-linemen of the last 25 years. A stalwart through a transitional phase for the program, it's a testament to his power, skill, and mean streak that his memory stands the test of time. Donovan Smith arrived at Penn State expecting to compete for Big Ten championships under Joe Paterno, and instead found himself among a group of Nittany Lions unfairly tasked with the most unusual and important challenge in college football history. An obvious talent who earned immediate playing time as a freshman, his yeoman's work protecting State's quarterbacks throughout the sanctions era earned him this spot on our second team. Okay, you got a Donovan Smith story, so let's start there.
Absolutely. So in 2021 and 2020, we only ran the ball up the middle, it felt like. We wouldn't stop running inside zone. Coming into 22, Ty Howell, who played with Donovan Smith, he was the center on that team, were implementing outside zone. So he says, hey, here's the last time we were really running it heavily, and he showed us tape of Donovan Smith, especially. I was playing offensive tackle at the time, and he said, this is how you do it. This is how an offensive tackle runs outside zone. And Donovan Smith, he was a dominant run blocker and liked to just put dudes in the dirt. So I guess that's how I learned how to run block outside zone was from Donovan Smith, even though he played, almost 5-6 years prior to me.
Yeah. Great appreciation always for those guys who stuck with Penn State through all the crap and dealt with the NCAA sanctions and the bowl bans and the scholarship reductions. And Donovan was one of those guys who did very well for himself, playing himself into a position to be drafted into the NFL, but really gave a lot to Penn State at a time when the program needed it most. So there you go. And even taught you guys how to run outside zone years later.
There you go. Also, you know, we were only talking college, but I think he's made over $100 million. And then not to make it about
not
me,
too
but,
shabby.
you know, James Franklin, he does the, it's almost a draft announcement when you are signing on signing day. And he has a former player generally sometimes announce it. And Donovan Smith actually announced my name. So we got a connection there.
Nice.
Love Big Don.
Now, you were in diapers when Kareem McKenzie was playing at Penn State, or pretty damn close to it.
Pretty much. But, you know, still got to pay homage to the guys back then. And had you know, there were some good running backs back in the day that we might get here in a little bit. But he was obviously a big part of that early 2000s offensive line.
Yeah, so I will tell you, there was, I don't want to say controversy, there was competition for these second-team tackle spots. And there were guys, full disclosure, and we're going to talk about this on the podcast, who we all voted for. I voted for Caden Wallace, actually. I think an underappreciated dude.
Listen, we call him your OG. He was my OG when I got here, 3 years older than me. I would have put Caden Wallace on this list. I think criminally underrated for what he did, especially his last 2 seasons.
Yeah.
Had a little bit of a rough start, played early on, but then when it was him and Olu that last year, when it was bookend, lockdown tackles, and someone that I think is, you know, once again, we're still only talking college, but probably going to have a pretty good pro career as well. But what he did here, played here 5 years, played multiple positions, but obviously finished off at tackle there. I'm leaning Caden Wallace. Slight bias there, Booch.
Now, here's the thing. I'm going to contradict myself. I just disclosed I voted for Caden Wallace, and I agree with everything you just said. As I think about it, if 2000, 2001 era Kareem McKenzie was on the roster in 2023, he probably starts at right tackle ahead of Caden Wallace. Really great player. Moved to guard in the NFL. Had a nice long career. Never left New York. Drafted by the Jets. Played for the Giants. Again, I know we're mostly talking Penn State career. But one of the most famous plays in NFL history is the David Tyree helmet catch in the Giants Super Bowl against the Patriots. Go back and watch that clip. There are 5 offensive linemen. The only one who holds his block is Kareem McKenzie on that Giants team. So if, like me, you are somebody who is eternally grateful that we do not have to hear to the end of our lives about Bill Belichick and Tom Brady and the undefeated 19-0 Patriots, and I'm sorry to all the New England fans out there, you can thank Kareem McKenzie, because if that guy biffs on his block like the other 4 dudes did, Eli's in the dirt, and that never happens. So those are our offensive tackles. Let's now talk about the interior of the offensive line, guards, center. This is our second team.
Will Fries is a testament to Penn State's commitment to player development, and his ascension to such noteworthy status by his senior year signaled a coming renaissance for the Nittany Lions along the line of scrimmage. After battling through position changes still traceable to issues of post-sanction roster depth, a final switch to his natural spot and some quality coaching made all the difference. Fries settled in at guard and turned in an all-conference performance worthy of recognition on this team. Bloodlines run strong for Stefan Wisniewski, who added new chapters to his family's Penn State saga. Wiz contributed immediately as a freshman and earned even greater national acclaim after moving to center in later years. An All-American on the field and in the classroom, Steph Wisniewski personified the values of the grand experiment. Like his fellow second-team guard, Connor McGovern bought into James Franklin's vision for restoring the power and prestige of Penn State football. McGovern was talented enough to see the field early, contributing to the 2016 conference title run as a freshman, and like most linemen of his era, was asked to learn multiple positions. He made a difference for the Lions offense wherever he lined up, but distinguished himself at guard, earning him this spot on our second-team offensive line.
Okay, perfect example of what I was talking about with moving positions. Steph Wisniewski, right out of the gate, was a great guard on that 2008 Big Ten championship team. Made his bones at Penn State, moving into center. He was eligible as a center, very deserving as a second-team guy at that spot.
Absolutely, an All-American and someone that has strong Penn State ties. Dad and uncle both played at Penn State, and then even returned to Penn State. He's actually technically kind of on the staff. He is a kind of ministry level guy, helping the guys in another way, but still is all Penn State through and through. I think he deserves this one a lot, Beer Booch.
Yeah, and I know the whole don't talk about the NFL career type of thing. I can't let it pass. Super Bowl champ with the Philadelphia Eagles.
I'll tell you, he told me basically his ankle was shattered in that game. Played through that Super Bowl. One of the best to ever do it here, Booch.
Love it, love it. You have to be a really good player to get on the field as a freshman, and whiz was that. Now we're moving a little bit closer to your era with both of these second-team guards in Connor McGovern and Will Fries.
Yeah, Booch, I said it off camera. I'll say it on camera. They excelled with Matt Limegrover as their coach. They got to get a tip of the cap for that one. It's not easy. I'm just going to say it. McGovern obviously moved around a little bit. Had a great career here. Got drafted pretty high, especially for a time frame where that was kind of the pause in the offensive line room where it was a little shaky for those mid-2010s with the sanctions and whatnot, not having as many scholarships, and there was not as much emphasis put on the offensive line. But seeing that, and then Will Fries, someone that was quite shaky at right tackle for a while there. Chase Young basically owned him. If I told you back then, 2017, 2018, that Will Fries was going to be a better NFL player than Chase Young, someone would look at you and say, you're lying, you're wrong. But sure enough, after a $70 million contract, something like that, he's doing very well. And shout out to Philip Troutwine for moving Will Fries, obviously he's in here at guard, moving him from tackle to guard in his last year, and that's where he excelled.
Yeah, no doubt. What I love about the guys we have talked about on the second team offense, so many of them, and Wisniewski's an exception for sure, but many of them did not excel right out of the gate in their career. They had to overcome some adversity on the field and still by the end of their time at Penn State distinguish themselves enough that they earned a spot on this team, which I think is really cool. I do just want to shout out a couple of guys who I think deserve to be remembered at this spot. Sal Wormley, you and I both talked about like that. That's a player who really, like Caden Wallace, probably a little underappreciated.
Oh, I 100% agree. Another one of my OGs. And I would put Sal Wormley over Will Fries. I think a better longevity of his career. There was like 2 or 3 good years there from Sal Wormley and a part of 2 of the better offensive lines in Penn State history, if you're talking about it. Once again, shout out to Philip Troutwine for building it that way, but Sal Wormley was a huge part of that interior on 2 really good Penn State offensive lines.
Yeah, I think about Miles Diffenbach, a guy from the sanctions era, and Tyler Reed, guard on that 2005 Big Ten championship team. A lot of good names you can mention. Only a few of them can earn the spot, and those were our second team offensive linemen. So when we get back, it's what you've all been waiting for. We love all the skill position crap. We're going to do running backs and quarterbacks, whatever. Stay with us here on the obligatory quarter century team from Antifragile Brewing Company.
Mark your calendars for July 19th when the Hoppy Valley Brewers Fest returns to Penn State. Meet the brewers and enjoy exclusive pours from over 75 breweries from across Pennsylvania and beyond. Revisit your favorite places, reconnect with friends, and make new memories at the Hoppy Valley Brewers Fest. Learn more and get your tickets today at hoppyvalleybrewersfest.com.
All right, we are coming down to the end of our second team offense on the obligatory Penn State quarter century team. We're here at Antifragile Brewing Company. Landon, this is a great time to thank our sponsor on this whole series, the Hoppy Valley Brewers Fest, which is coming back to Penn State for its second year on July 19th. Get your tickets at hoppyvalleybrewersfest.com. We want to see you there. As some folks have heard, Tengwall, they're doing a little work on Beaver Stadium this year. Have you read about this?
Just a little bit.
This is a thing that's happening.
Some explosions. We see Mike Moody out there in the hard hat. It's exciting, though. I think everybody's excited that we're finally, if anybody that has been in the press box, which I think we both have, it felt like at times you might have tipped over. And so we're glad to have Beaver Stadium be just a little bit better, just $700 million better. Booch.
That's how they knocked it down. They had Moody run into it, actually. But as a result of that work, festival is not going to be inside Beaver Stadium this year. It's going to be right outside, adjacent to Medlar Field. over 75 breweries, great ones from all across Pennsylvania and beyond. It is just like the best excuse to come back to Penn State, come back to Happy Valley, drink beer. And to me, being on the board of the Mountain Nittany Conservancy, I love the way they're doing it this year because you can see Beaver Stadium. You're right outside the cathedral, but you got an unbelievable view of Mount Nittany while you're drinking your beer.
You're getting ready. You're training camp for the season, drinking right outside of the stadium. That's what we're all about to do for, the next, 5 months incoming.
So come back to Happy Valley, support this show, frankly, and get your tickets to the Hoppy Valley Brewers Fest, July 19th, 2025. All right. I am not a great lover of skill position players, generally, especially quarterbacks. I do love running backs. So that's where we're going to start. Let's have our first second team running back. Go.
Tony Hunt was never the flashiest player. His recruitment didn't have the most hype. His early career saw the Lions fall short in the win column. Nothing came easy. But as Hunt took command of the starting job, Penn State's fortunes improved, and that was no coincidence. Tough, smart, consistent, and relentless, Tony Hunt embodied all the best qualities of a great running back and the very best of what it means to be a Nittany Lion.
As a runner, like that dude just wore people out, like famously just clowned the Tennessee Volunteers in SEC speed after his last game as a Nittany Lion, coming off the field in the bowl game. Tony Hunt just wore him down.
Yeah, and fourth on the all-time rushing list, and someone that we didn't pass a whole lot in those early 2000s, Booch. And if we didn't have Tony Hunt, I don't know where we are at that moment. And then obviously a big part of that 2005 season that completely turned this whole thing around and made Penn State not go into the years of the darkness in the early 2000s there.
Yeah, I mean, and again, going back to the theme we've discussed, which is guys overcoming early adversity. He was not the heralded running back in his recruiting class. And so he had to earn everything he got. And by the time you got to that 05 season, which was Tony Hunt's junior year, he was pretty much the consensus starting running back because he was just a better player in all phases of the game. Tony Hunt's one of my favorite Nittany Lions, and probably the highest compliment I can pay him as a football player, other than his toughness that I just talked about, is that he excelled for Penn State in all phases of the game. He could catch a ball out of the backfield when it was required. He could run with power. Not the fastest guy, but he could make people miss. He was a great blocker, too. So just a great teammate, and whenever Penn State needed to ice a game, Tony Hunt was their guy. Now, again, tough choices here. A lot of really great players at this position. Let's unveil our other second-team running back.
It didn't take long for Evan Royster to make his mark at Penn State. Talented enough to split carries as a true freshman, by his sophomore year of 2008, Royster was the starting tailback for a Big Ten champion. As steady and reliable a presence as the Nittany Lions have had in the backfield, he built a body of work over 4 seasons that is second to none as the program's all-time leading rusher.
Quietly killing you with consistency. That was Evan Royster, and that's how he's the all-time leading rusher in program history.
Yeah, and someone that may be in jeopardy after this year to no longer be number one over there on the student bookstore steps. But someone
records are made to be broken. No offense, Evan. I'm kind of rooting for you to be number 3 when this season's over.
I think we all are. I think that means we have a good 2025 season, Booch. But someone, maybe some other guys that might be on this list in the future, but also we talked about Wisniewski. Definitely benefited from having a great offensive line. He had some really good guys up front. But as you said, Owie just showed up and you knew what you were going to get out of Evan Royster.
Which is big. I mean, as an offensive lineman, what do you want out of the guys in the backfield? You just want to know what to expect, right?
That's the easiest way to block for him.
And that was Evan all the way back to his true freshman year. Splitting carries with Rodney Kinlaw in the 07 backfield, then a key part of a Big Ten champion in 2008. And really, the 2010 football season for Penn State was really wonky. Like, we did not have a great record. I think 7-5 record. But a few of the most fun, most memorable nights in Beaver Stadium. Joe wins his 400th against Northwestern. And I want to say it was the week before. We're whiteout against Michigan. And that's the game where Evan sets the all-time rushing record in program history. So now we're going to get to our second team quarterback. I've been joking a little bit about like, I don't like quarterbacks and it's a, diva position or whatever. Mm-hmm. The dude who we're about to talk about is one of my all-time favorites, maybe number one. Here's our second team quarterback of the obligatory quarter-century team.
When Penn State needed a hero, Michael Robinson was ready to pull on the cape. A dynamic athlete who impacted State's offense from the day he stepped on campus. Robinson would struggle through years of position changes and personal adversity. But his senior year would be one for the ages. Finally secure as the starting quarterback, M-Rob defiantly led the 2005 Nittany Lions from the brink of national irrelevance to an improbable Big Ten title and number 3 national ranking. Few players in Penn State history bonded with coaches, teammates, and fans like Michael Robinson.
I will tell you this, young man. The best, and I mean the best, leader I have ever seen put on the blue and white.
Mm. Oh, in what ways? I'm curious. Educate me a little bit on this, Booch.
Okay. Well, we go back to the 05 season and all the adversity that team was facing, everything he went through as a player, switching around positions, thought about transferring, had some real issues early on in his career, took a lot of flack from the fan base going into that year because there were a lot of people who thought he just wasn't a quarterback and that he should have been the starter. And he took all of it on his shoulders, took all the burden of turning around that offense, turning around Penn State football. And really, I think Michael understood that whatever happened that year was not just going to define his legacy as a college football player and maybe his future as a possible professional. He had the added burden of Joe Paterno's legacy as well. And somehow he carried all of that, all the criticism, all the expectation, all the pressure, and turned it into an 11-1 Big Ten championship season that saw Penn State finish number 3 in the nation.
Yeah, and if that 05 season doesn't happen, I don't think 08 happens. And, I think the 2000s are the dark ages of Penn State football, if not for Mike Robb.
Dynamic athlete, played early in his career. Again, maybe this set him back as a quarterback, but played wherever Penn State needed him on offense. We talked about it with Dion Butler, the lack of explosivity in the receiving core. M-Rob will play running back for you. He'll play receiver for you. He'll return kicks. And when it came time for him to shine, the dude delivered in a way that very, very few Nittany Lions have before. Absolutely earned this spot. With all due respect to the great Darryl Clark, who got a lot of votes as well.
He was my quarterback. I threw out Sean Clifford. I'm just putting that out there.
And he got votes too. Yeah, no question. It's a testament to what Michael Robinson meant to this program and the relationship he formed with the fan base that he secured this second team spot despite really only being the uncontested starter for 1 year. When he walked off the field after the 2005 Wisconsin game, which was senior day, the ovation he got was one of the loudest I've ever heard Beaver Stadium.
Rightfully so. And you love him. You see him on TV all the time. He's damn good at that as well.
Yes, sir.
He excels at it all, Booch.
All right, we appreciate you being here, Tengwall. We're going to bring it back to the first team offense. Next week, we're going to unveil the first team defense. So stay with us here on the For the Bloggy YouTube channel. We're going to keep it rolling with the obligatory Penn State quarter-century team. Thanks to Antifragile Brewing Company and to the Hoppy Valley Brewers Fest. Go to hoppyvalleybrewersfest.com to get your tickets. We hope to see you there. We'll see you again soon. Until then, take care of yourselves and each other. We are